Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you my partner, the gentleman who co-founded Newsmakers Live and the Newsmakers Journal. 8-time Emmy Award winner. Do you hear me? 8-time Emmy Award winner. We do it like it's nothing. Mr. Maynard Eaton.
I don't give up the mic to too many people. I really don't. This is my show. This is Newsmakers. But the greatest newsmaker I know is about to come on. He's a professor and a preacher. He's profound, provocative, passionate, and persuasive. He's an author and he's intellectual. Sometimes that's a non sequitur. He's eloquent, erudite, and irascible. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Eric Dyson is riveting and late. Who's going to join us in a second is a gentleman who I swear to God, he's Spelman College's greatest gift. William Jelani Cobb, Dr. William Jelani Cobb. But give me 1 second, Dr. Cobb. Okay. William Jelani Cobb right here. Give me 1 second. Dr. Dyson.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to Newsmakers, man.
I'm glad to be here at the Newsmakers crib, brother.
First, why'd you leave the show? Were you booted or did you leave?
Lord have mercy. They're going to start that way, just like that. Well, what had happened was, I'm gonna give the official version of the public story. I moved on to other opportunities to be able to articulate a vision that was unfettered by intrusion. And, Radio 1, Syndication 1 gave me a tremendous opportunity for a year, especially in Atlanta, where it was on FM. All the other stations were on AM, so it didn't have the reach that Atlanta had. So I'm retooling now to be able to thrust out into the deeps again with a broader audience base and the ability to tell some other truths. Plus, I'm going to do some television stuff as well. So you'll hear from me pretty soon.
But you sneaked that. You didn't tell us you were going. And you got some lame replacing you.
Well, you know what? God bless them because everybody do their thing. I'm doing what I'm doing. Other people doing what they doing. You know, the radio business is tricky, though, man, because initially it wasn't even going to be a statement from me. I said, no, we really don't want to do it that way. We want to have the opportunity to talk to the people because I'm not going to disappear into the night because I got too much visibility and vocality. As a result of that, let's holla. So we did that in a wonderful way. I'm thankful to Kathy Hughes and Alfred Liggins for the tremendous opportunity at Syndication 1 to do that. But I got another platform now to be able to articulate what I'm doing. Plus, I got to drop some more books, and I got to conceive them, and, I got to do the work.
Tell us about the other platform. Where you going beyond radio?
I don't know
big
yet.
now?
No. We're definitely working that out right now. We've got other opportunities that have been presented to us, so we're trying to field them right now to make certain that I'll be able to do
White media?
Yes. For the most part, yes.
Well, explain that a little bit, please.
Well, you go, look, I teach at a white school. A lot of people say, how come you're in a black school?
He is presently serves as Avalon Foundation Professor in Humanities and of Religious Studies at the University of Pennsylvania.
Right.
Well, my daughter went there.
Oh, okay, beautiful.
A very expensive school. Believe
Yeah,
me.
for real, though. For shizzle, my
very
nigga.
expensive.
Yeah.
And a very prestigious school.
Oh, no doubt. It's an Ivy League school. So, but I'm there because, first of all, they got black kids like your child there. Yeah. They got other people who need to be reached by a brother like me because I don't want to just leave their education to them. I got to get up in there as well. But sometimes you got to love black people brilliantly and beautifully with the resources available or made available by the dominant culture. That's some of the irony. That the white folk wouldn't think about doing stuff to you that black folk would. Now some, not all, colleges helmed by African American people at a black institution are autocratic. They would say stuff, restrict your ability to speak in ways that white folk would never think about doing because they know better. But the respect for tenure or the autonomy, that is the individual responsibility or capacity of a professor to say a certain things may not prevail in some places as it does in others. So I think sometimes we have to take advantage of the resources made available in the dominant culture to love your people more. So I could take money from one to love folk on the other side. Y'all can break that down like you want to,
Professor Dyson, did you ever go to a black school? Do you appreciate black colleges?
All three of my children, Hampton, Spelman, and my son is at Morehouse right now. Yeah, I think so. And I started at Knoxville College.
Thank you.
Love black schools. Without a black school, my children wouldn't be educated. Without black institutions of higher education, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. But one of the reasons why I wanted to invite Professor Jelani Cobb over here, he's a professor at Spelman. He's written 2 brilliant new books, a book To the Break of Dawn on hip-hop and another book, Dave Chappelle, The Devil and Dave Chappelle. So here's a guy teaching 3 courses a semester and writing 2 books in the space of, 3 months. So the point is that we have to be able to support that. And in order to do that, we can't be teaching 3 and 4 classes a semester and doing the work and nurturing the students and creating the possibility that we will perpetuate a legacy and transmit the heritage of serious intellectual work. Don't forget, Du Bois was fired by a black institution. So we don't romanticize them, even as we see that they are beautiful, necessary, and critical to our people's livelihood. That's why I stay up in them. That's why I love them.
Before we bring on Dr. Jelani Cobb, I want to ask you about, I saw you and was mesmerized by you at the inauguration of the Black Caucus in January, right? You were just on fire, brother.
Thank you, bro.
Although your time was shortened,
right?
You were on fire. But at his Minister Farrakhan said to the chairperson of the Black Caucus at the
in his last speech in Detroit
said,
at Ford Field,
y'all are not doing what you're sloughing. What do you think they're doing now? What's the Black Caucus doing now? You inaugurated them. You said this is the truth. This is the power. Mr. Farrakhan says they ain't doing doo-doo.
Well, you got to be up in the game to talk about what they ain't doing, right? The Nation of Islam has only recently reclaimed its political legacy, first of all. So Minister Farrakhan speaks from a very particular position that I love. The reason I was there at Ford Field and heard him is because I support his ministry and what he does and his brilliance. But don't forget, Malcolm X was restricted from political activity by Elijah Muhammad, and only when Minister Farrakhan helped revive the Nation of Islam did they become involved in the political process. That's a recent historical trajectory that you can't have amnesia about when you're making statements about what people is and ain't doing. That's number one. Number two, there's no question that we need some more output from some political figures within our community. At the same time, we have to keep that political pressure on them. But a sister like Carolyn Cheek Kilpatrick in Detroit, a former school teacher, highly visible, intellectually serious and ferocious woman, is doing an extraordinary job of trying to consolidate the power, the presence, and the perspective, the agenda, and the opportunity for black political authority to do so.
How's she doing that?
Well, first of all, she's there present as a black woman in a patriarchal world where black men can't even acknowledge the sincerity of black women. That's just number one. All right. Here we go. I'm just saying. Number two, Carolyn Cheek Kilpatrick has made that organization more seriously visible on the front line of defending the vulnerable people in our community. Because one of the things we don't want to do is we don't want to just throw down on some pro-black people. We want to deal with the interests and the issues of black people whose backs are against the wall. So do we need to challenge these politicians to represent it? Of course, because like other politicians, they're representing the interests of the corporate elite. They're representing the interests of the big interests that put money in their pockets. We know that. I had to introduce William Jefferson. Now, William Jefferson, as you know,
that's true, you did.
Right? And I had to signify.
That's right, you sure did.
I had to say,
he put on a show. He put on a show.
I'm just saying. So I had to do that by saying, first of all, he ain't been convicted of nothing, so we got to deal with that. At the same time, I said, as the philosopher Sean Carter said, dang though, man, I'm just trying to do three. If the record's 2 mil, I'm just trying to do 3. So I'm saying that at that level, I'm just trying to do me. If the record's 2 mil, I'm trying to do 3. I'm trying to signify maybe there's something else going on. My point is we have to challenge our political leadership to live up to the visions that we have historically transmitted. But at the same time, we can't act as if these people act independent of the social support they should receive from us. We can't wait on them. We got to push them. We got to create tension so that they have to respond to us. There are only, 42 people in the United States Congress. So that means we can't depend upon them alone. We have to create conditions, circumstances that allow us to create both moral and political opportunity through sustained activism. We can't depend on them to do for us. We got to allow them to become vehicles and voice boxes, if you will, for the best interest we have. We also got to also keep it going ourselves.
With all due respect, I admire you, and most of our newsmakers, the family does too. Are you just a voice box? Are you a professor, a preacher? Or are you just talking, or are you making a difference?
Well, talking is better than killing, brother. And Martin Luther King Jr. spoke 300 and 80 times a year. Talking? Why would black people be so anti-intellectual? Let me tell you why we behind in this race and why progressives are behind. The white right wing doing like this. Hey, you're smart. All I wanted you to do all day long is write books. Hey, you're smart. All I want you to do all day is write books. I want you to create intellectual justifications for the political processes we're going to put out here. We want you to give it a big name, have a PhD, sound real smart, and tell us Negroes are dumb. I'll go to work with it. I'll write the bell curve for you. Negroes, on the other hand, can you do anything beside write? Negro, please, with your anti-intellectual black self. You're going to dog some poor black kids out here, and we are suspicious and skeptical of the critical intelligence necessary to be focused on the issues we face. So let me tell you what, at the end of the day, though, obviously I ain't just talking because I'm out here. This ain't the University of Pennsylvania. Last time I checked. This don't look like it. I mean, I wish all of y'all was at Penn because I would love to have the opportunity to engage with all these extraordinary, intelligent, and elegant black people. This ebony ecstasy and furrowed in coffee flesh sitting right before me, the high brilliance and intelligence. I would love that opportunity. But what I'm saying to you, talking, don't play that. Martin Luther King Jr. talked. He gave a speech, I Have a Dream. Gave a speech before he died. I may not get there with you. Words. My Bible tells me, I happen to be a Baptist preacher, God created the world through word. If you're degrading the possibility of the word is seminal. It creates life worlds and opportunities. What you talking about Snoop, he ain't doing nothing but saying words. But he's saying words that are destructive or uplifting, powerful, provocative. They're only words, but they're words that create life worlds. They create justifications. They create possibility. I have no apology in me and defensiveness about the ability to articulate that word with the height of my power. No doubt about that.
You got Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. I told you it'd be a treat. Introduce, please, Dr. William Jelani Cobb.
William Jelani Cobb.
Who I've interviewed previously.
This brother right here is one of the coldest young black intellectuals in America. He's a historian. He's a political theorist. He writes a column for AOL.com, Black Voices. His book on hip-hop is one of the most brilliant explorations of the aesthetics of hip-hop to the break of dawn. And now, The Devil and Dave Chappelle. Here's a guy who represents the best of the intellectual tradition, who's teaching, by the way, at Spelman College. He could be teaching a whole bunch of other places. He's there because he recognized, first of all, it's a first-rate institution. Secondly, he wants to shape the life worlds of young women in serious ways to give them a progressive perspective from a male, because if he's a feminist, that means that he's serious about the social reconstruction of gender in America where black women haven't been given that opportunity. And thirdly, he's just a smart cat who's doing his thing representing our people. William Jelani Cobb.
Damn, I'll just get on the stage, huh? But this is my show. Pass him, Mike. Why you hang out with him, man? Shit, you don't need him. Why you hang out with him?
Let me just say this, right? In the arena that we operate in, which is, the academic intellectual arena, the agenda is to have a black person who will stand up and tell you how other black people are not doing whatever it is that they say they're doing. So if you get 4 black intellectuals in a room, you will have 4 black people who are intended to be opposed to each other, who are intended to be used, manipulated, and ultimately useless to the communities that produce them. So I love this brother right here, because no matter where you are, no matter where you see him, no matter what it is he's doing, you have no questions about where he stands. And so you don't have any, he will use a whole array of words. You may not know what all the words are, but at the end of the day, you know that he is down for us, that he's on our side. So I have to say the same thing for my brother here. That's why I hang out with this brother right here.
Tell me about your book, Debating Race, with Michael Eric Dyson. Debating race is just a debate. Does it make a difference? Does it make a change? Is it just rhetoric?
The Lincoln-Douglas debate, did that make a difference? Tremendous. The debate over slavery in this country, did it make a debate? Tremendous. Debates are critical. Again, it's interesting to me that we tell our young people we don't want them to be anti-intellectual. Stop just tripping off Patron. Stop tripping off the bling. And yet, we discourage them from taking seriously the life of the mind. One of the reasons I wanted the people to see this young brilliant cat right here is to see what discipline results in. To see the possibility that you can focus, you can make the life of the mind sexy. I'm trying to freak my stuff pimp on pages. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to make it serious so young people go, damn, okay, can we do that with words? You're right. When they read this cat right here, this is one of the most eloquent cats writing in any genre. He really is. So I'm saying to you, debates are critical because you got to focus intelligence. And in this book, I'm taking on and culture. I'm taking on Dennis Miller. I'm taking on David Horowitz. I'm taking on some of the white supremacist right-wing ideologues who deny black people their humanity. I'm also arguing with people on my own side. I'm talking to Cornel West. I'm talking to Tavis Smiley. I'm talking to Jesse Jackson. I get into a big debate with Jesse Jackson about whether or not black intellectuals should be involved in the movement. He criticizes black intellectuals, rightfully so, for being disengaged and disinterested in the process of social change that Professor Cobb talked about. At the same time, I said, I didn't get no PhD to carry nobody's bag, that if you want black intellectuals in the movement, sometimes they have to be critical of the process by which your organized institutional authority has to be generated. So you got to say, black intellectuals' purpose is to bring truth to power and to tell the truth as best we can. In this book, right, I'm trying to drop some science, brother.
Drop some science. Well, let's drop some science. Gentlemen, how about Barack Obama? How about Bill Cosby? Both of you, please.
Let me explain to you something about Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama, we have this debate, this discussion that's come up about whether or not Barack Obama is black enough, right? We can end that conversation really quickly by saying that nobody gets elected to the state assembly from the south side of Chicago with you having any doubt about how black they are. But if we take this to the next level, you understand how media works. As me being a person who actually operates within the media as well as within academia, that was a question that came up in the New York Times. You never heard any black people, no black person you know was running around going, is Barack Obama black enough? Until it popped up in the New York Times. And so the insidious thing about it is when you look at a phenomenon in black America within the media, the immediate response is to find a pathological, diseased, ill, disastrous kind of way of interpreting it. The issue is black people were not running behind Barack Obama. So we don't see black people being overwhelmed with glee at the prospect of voting for Barack Obama. So obviously they must have a problem with him. They don't think he's black enough.
Right.
So the issue is,
can he win?
But before we get to that,
no, this is my show.
No, this is the important thing, though. This goes into the issue of whether or not he can win as a viable candidate. You'll see how this is how I'm going to say it. The presumption was that black people should run out and vote for someone on the basis of skin color. Right, but Al Sharpton, as much as I respect brother Al Sharpton,
are we past that?
But this is the question that's being put forward to us in the media, right? Why do we not get behind Barack Obama immediately? Al Sharpton, as much as I respect what the brother does, did not do well electorally. Right. Neither did Carol Moseley Braun. Right. Neither did that brother from Maryland who ran Alan Keyes. Didn't do well. Jesse Jackson did. So what does that mean? Black voters discern. We don't simply vote on the basis of skin color. Right. On the opposite side of the question, white people do. We know for a fact that black people will vote for white politicians. The other side, the converse, has not been established. So I said the real question, when that's put forward to me, is not why do black people not line up behind Barack Obama? Why are we not voting on the basis of shared skin color? The real question is, why is it that white people only vote on the basis of shared skin color?
Yeah, that's a great point. And further, let me tell you this, and brilliantly, as he stated, but look at it this way. Are we going to do a DNA profiling of Barack Obama, a genetic examination? He is a metaphor for all of us. Look at me, somebody been up in the gene pool. Whether it's your mama, your grandmama, your great-grandmama, you could be dark as a park in the park. Bruh, somebody been up in your tree, shaking it down. Thomas Jefferson been to the slave quarter. That's the deal in America. So we can't say how black are his politics. Not his skin color, not his pigment, not his melanin, and how progressive. A cat like me can't get elected president. That ain't my job. I'm a gadfly. I'm a social critic. I'm a prophet. I got to spit truth that people don't want to hear and make them feel uncomfortable. That's my job. Barack Obama is a centrist. He was born that way. He's not selling out a tradition. That's how he came to us. But he's a local organizer under Saul Alinsky's system in Chicago. He knows about the grassroots, and he's a figure who's able to articulate a vision that is at least solvent for those who transcend the racial division. So I'm saying at that level, you got to respect my man's game. Don't vote for him because he's black, but don't diss him because he's a brother and you ain't known that much about, we don't know that much about him. What did you know about John Kerry? Except he had a wife who could speak up and tell the truth. What you know about damn John McCain? You don't know nothing about him. So now you're trying to examine my man as if you're going to do his DNA profiling, and he's an undergraduate at Columbia, law school from Harvard, got a black wife, got black kids, go to a black church. He's a Negro. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Ron, what you say we're gonna do? I'm just gonna give it up, Ron. What you say? Bill Cosby. Right or wrong? Yes or no? come on. You
And the people say. I'm gonna let Professor Cobb get it there. I'm gonna let Professor Cobb get it there.
Come on.
I teach for the record. I teach in a building called Cosby Hall at Spelman College.
Oh yeah, maybe I better take that one. All right. yeah, we want that brother to keep his job for a minute. But I'll tell you what he thinks later. Look, he's been on record in a brilliant way in Past and Perfect. He'll do his thing. But let me tell you what, I wrote a book on Cosby. I got mad respect for Bill Cosby as a human being. It's no doubt. I don't have a personal beef with Bill Cosby. My beef is philosophical. What did Professor Cobb say earlier? They look for the pathological ill example to exemplify what we think is wrong with the Negro. White supremacy is most effective when it uses a black voice as a ventriloquist. White supremacy is most effective when it uses a black voice as a ventriloquist. I ain't talking about the puppet that's speaking. I'm talking about the voice that's talking. I'm saying to you, sometimes white supremacy gets on the vocal cords of black people and reverberates and amplifies it. What am I saying to you? When Bill Cosby said that Shaniqua, Taliqua, and Muhammad are all in jail, that black people are basically having sex with their grandmas, he said. He says a woman has a baby at 13, then she has a baby when she's 12. You do the math. I'm trying to stop you from having sex with your grandma. I'm saying to you, if you listen to what Bill Cosby said, it was one of the most ridiculous performances of black self-hatred and the pathologization. What I mean by that? Making ill. Let me finish. Making ill of black people in public spaces. I'm not going to give him a break because he's a black man who gave a bunch of money to black people. I'm saying still be culpable, accountable, and responsible for what you say.
Are we somehow responsible? I'm no right winger. Are we somehow responsible?
Of course, but that ain't what he said. Ain't nobody look. And I'm gonna let Professor Cobb talk about. He writes about this.
The funny thing is, like you're saying to a brother who teaches at a black college and says 3 classes a day.
Opens his mouth.
Who has 3 classes in a semester, is trying to write workbooks and so on, that I don't understand the value of hard work. We had this conversation, right? So if we're looking at this in terms of what Cosby is saying, on a fundamental level, who's going to be opposed to saying that you need to work, that you need to provide your children with good values, that you need to try to instill them with some kind of perspective on the world that can be sustained? None of us will disagree with that. Our issue is with the dehumanization of an element of our community that has already been dehumanized and beaten down. So if you have someone who finds themselves in a position whereby they know that they're at the bottom of society.
That's true.
So you come and point your finger at them and say that you're having sex with your grandmother, that you have $500 sneakers, and that you were indicted for what you name your child.
Oh my God.
This goes beyond what your child did, who you are, what you named your child Shaniqua. So what? So what? If you named your child John, he can still wind up in the penitentiary.
Where do we go from here? All the problems, all the plagues, all the shit. Where do we go from here? Is there hope in the future?
Of course there is. I mean, the possibility of hope rests upon not focusing on what you are now or where you stand. This is what Howard Thurman, the great prophetic mystic, said. He said, never scale down your dreams to the level of the event, which is your immediate experience. Never scale down your dreams to the level of the event, which is your immediate experience. He said our slave foreparents didn't just say, we in slavery, that's it. They anticipated the arising and emergence of a different class of possibilities that rested upon transmitting their values to their children. That's what's hopeful to me. It's hopeful to me when I hear young people trying to make a difference in the world. It's hopeful when I see young black intellectuals like this coming along trying to swing in a serious way and use the best of the tradition. It's hopeful to me to see black people like you hungry for information. And let me say something about Cosby why I got hope. Not about him, but about the people he's dogging. If Bill Cosby was right, why would all the people who come to see him be the very people he's dissing? If they didn't have interest in his message about responsibility, and look, I done wrote 15 books in 14 years. I'm on my grind, cousin. I believe in hard work. But I also know that if you don't have the possibility to exercise your hard work, it won't be anything that makes a difference. Let me give you my example of what I had with Bill Cosby. I went up to Bill Cosby. This is how I first met him. Through a plate glass window in a restaurant. I saw a friend of mine, Ed Lewis, who was at, Essence Magazine. Right? I said, what's up, man? How you doing? Now, this is through a plate glass window, so he didn't hear me, so I'm just mouthing. Hey, what's up? Then I see his wife. What's up? Then I see Miss Cosby. I said, oh, hey, how you doing? And she's like, that nervous laughter. Then I said to myself, if Cosby's wife is there, he must be there. Look down, there he was behind me, in front of me. Somebody told him that's Michael Eric Dyson. This is what Cosby did. He turns to the side, doesn't even look me on. and gives me the finger. Now, here's a man said he's mad at black young people for obscenity and using the N-word. Gave me the bird. I'm a historically recognized, politically sophisticated, and recognizable figure that he didn't give a damn about. Because I'm just another end to him, because I'm a street nigga too. I'm bringing the power, the flavor.
So is his youngest daughter.
You know what? What? Well, that's all right, but I'm saying to you, I'm not going to get into that kind of inflammatory, personal ad hominem. All I'm saying to you is that when I deal with a figure like that, if you're going to diss young people for using the N-word, you say, and for being obscene, and you can't even deal with me because you can't out-talk me, out-think me, or out-rhetoricalize me, then you got to give me the finger? Bruh, let's not do it that way. Let's be men who love black people, who disagree about the best route to racial redemption, but agree that both of us want to do it. I'm hopeful, but not optimistic. That's a huge difference.
Dr. Carr, your take on Bill Cosby. Before we get to the questions, please let's line up for the questions. Questions, not commentary, not documentaries. Questions for the vote.
Let me say this, right?
Form a line right over here, please.
The reason I started by saying that I teach in a building called Cosby Hall is that...
Please, respect for our guests. Respect for our guests. If you want to talk, go outside.
The reason I said that, I started out by saying that I teach in a building called Cosby Hall, is that I respect what Bill Cosby has done. Going back from, creating a black animation, with Fat Albert, to creating Little Bill, to his funding that he's done with historically black colleges. But that said, when I came out and criticized him and said that, you cannot stand up here and dehumanize and attack people, I was in turn accused of being ungrateful. And so I said, so the question is, and I'm saying I guess I was supposed to be bought off by now. But the fundamental point is that none of us is above criticism. None of us are. So for Bill Cosby to go to New Orleans, and this really happened, after Hurricane Katrina, and when they asked him about what was going on with the community there, he is so incapable at this point in time of recognizing that black people may be victimized by circumstances that are deliberately, calculatedly created and intended. So water, like disaster, follows the path of least resistance. When we see what happened, I've been to New Orleans, when you see what happened, it was not accidental that you could still go to the French Quarter and have a drink, and then go other places and drive for miles and miles and miles where there's nothing inhabitable. Nothing inhabitable. And so when you see the city, let's be very clear that the disaster and the devastation that you've seen on television understates what the situation is there. So when Bill Cosby came there, they asked him about the people who were being denied the right to vote because they did not have mobile voting precincts for people who were fundamentally homeless. He didn't respond to that. What he said was, I want to talk about the black people who were committing crime, who were carjacking, who were having babies out of wedlock, who were on welfare, who refused to work, blah, 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 before Hurricane Katrina. These are people who've seen their family members float down the street. When I was in New Orleans, this brother told me we were grateful in my neighborhood because we found our bodies.
Right, that's true.
I mean, that's what a disaster is. A disaster is something that makes you grateful for having a body to bury. He said because the people in the neighborhood next to us, their bodies swept out into the Gulf.
Well, before we go to the questions, Professor, please, pass me the microphone. Is race still a predominant question, the pejorative question in American society now? Is that what we still revolve around?
Sure. There's no question. But to pick up on what Professor Cobb is saying, you see, when Bill, and I was there because I spoke. Al Sharpton spoke, I spoke, Greg Mathers was the host, Mark Morial from the National Urban League spoke, Jesse spoke, and Bill Cosby, after all of us were on message, talking about unanimity of purpose, the political leadership of black America trying to articulate a vision to the world that we're on message here today. He's the only one who departed from that. And I cannot tell you the horror struck into the hearts of the people there listening, that how dare you come down here in the face of the infamous denial of free access to service that your citizenship guarantees you right to, for you to kick people while they were down. That is cowardly. You are at that level dehumanizing people whose dehumanization is the basis for the success of the French Quarter in New Orleans while the black people in the Ninth Ward got this. Yes, race is the central reality of America, but it's race and sexual orientation, race and gender oppression, race and class and economic inequality, race and xenophobia, race and the question of the Mexican immigrant and what happens in a nation of immigrants who now choose, because they're from Eastern European immigrant cities, to deny Jose. When Jurgen was coming here from Germany for the Super Information Highway, no problem. When Jose wants to come over here, all of a sudden that becomes a problem.
Brother, I just want to piggyback on that and say, before, I hear a lot of black folks saying we need to send all the Mexicans back. One thing that we need to be very mindful of is that Mexico abolished slavery in 1829, right? The United States abolished slavery in 1865. For those 36 years, if you were a black person in Texas, you were a black person in Mississippi, you were a black person in Alabama, and you were enslaved, you were not trying to run north. You were trying to run to Mexico.
That's right.
So there are 36 years of Mexican history where they gave us free shelter. They weren't in there going, send the Negroes back. They came here to take our jobs. I just want to jump in on that.
Questions. Come on, questions. Come on, questions.
That's why you have been.
This is hot. This is hot. This is Newsmakers. Newsmakers Live. Come on.
Mr. Dyson, Kevin has a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is kind of an old question, but I'm looking for your fresh perspective on it. Since Dr. King, there's been a vacuum of a quote-unquote black leader, and I say this with respect to what you mentioned earlier, that we as a community have to have some momentum in the masses. But looking at the top, who do you feel is the current black leaders, future black leaders, with all due respect to yourself, to be included in that field?
Well, look, first of all, the analysis itself has to be reshaped. Martin Luther King Jr. couldn't be Martin Luther King Jr. now, right? What he became in the 50s and 60s is rendered impossible now because of the success of the movement he produced, or at least helped produce. Martin Luther King Jr. acted in concert, usually with black women who never got the credit they deserved. Joanne Robinson, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker. These are, and look, when the movement busted out in Montgomery, it was the mimeographing machine of Joanne Robinson teaching at the local Negro college, who then forced them to take seriously Rosa Parks, and the Negro preachers didn't want to support the black women and Rosa Parks. They were scared. They said, what the white folk gonna do? E.D. Nixon, who worked for the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters with A. Philip Randolph, took them to the woodshed. You mean you Negro preachers driving these Cadillac, making money off of these washerwomen's tithes, and you can't even stand up for them? So let's not romanticize black leadership. Black leadership has, at the very beginning, been about the crucible of difficulty, and what we have to do is to acknowledge that black people produced the leaders they needed. Now, we can't say that there's been a gulf. Jesse Jackson had to be the leader of black America in a serious way in a post-King era that was difficult. It's like, you know, Jay-Z coming after Biggie and Pac, right? Or Nas in the aftermath of those deaths. It was like living to 39. Had Martin Luther King Jr. lived to be 72 years old, 75 years old, take your slow-talking, black Baptist preacher, Nobel Prize winning self off, because you're irrelevant to us now. There would be no birthday. There would be no holiday. There would be no broad celebration. All I'm saying to you is that black leadership is local, it's powerful, it's usually women and young people who never get the credit they deserve. That's why it's important for me to underscore, accent, and highlight local organizations that produce black people. It's mostly black women and young people who are doing extraordinary work. It's local now more than national.
This lady went 8. Please say
that's a very touchy subject with me, because I believe that the churches are supposed to support the parishioners,
right,
particularly the elderly that have to make a decision between whether or not they pay their rent,
right,
or they get a prescription for the painkillers that they have.
Right.
But our preachers are riding around in Bentleys, in different color
Hallelujah.
Bentleys. I got a problem with that. It's a very touchy subject, because those women the mothers in the pews that are sitting there that baking cakes and paying tithes on their Social Security, and they can't even pay their gas bill in order to be warm in the winter, but somebody's riding around in a Bentley. I have a problem with that.
Me too. Amen. Hallelujah. That's a leader.
But how do you defend your brethren?
I don't.
I mean,
yeah, I don't. You talking to me? I don't defend that. Let me tell you what I defend.
You're a preacher. I mean,
I am a preacher, but you see, I ain't got no church. You know what I'm saying? Because first of all, I'd be passing out condoms on the offering plate. That's just the kind of thing I'd be doing. Like, after the preachers and the deacons got one, then everybody else could have one. But let me tell you this. Here's the point. Oh, Lord have mercy. But anyway, all right. But here's my point. All I'm saying to you is that in the nation in which we live, the black ministry has capitulated, given up, surrendered its moral authority. Creflo Dollar has never spoken about racial profiling, racial injustice, economic inequality. He's about getting paid. Now look, I ain't against black people making money. I ain't against the accumulation of wealth, but you cannot pimp. I don't know what you heard about me, but I can get $1 out of me. Oh, okay. So who's the real pimp? When you go to church and tell black women you should be subordinate to a man, 75 to 80% of the black church is black women. They can cook, they can clean, they can sew, they can do everything but run the institution. They numerically dominate. That's apartheid. We called it evil in South Africa. We take it as business as usual in the black church. I don't second that. I think we got to challenge that.
Give me your take then,
Pastor, Reverend,
no doubt,
on Bishop Eddie Long. Bishop Eddie Long.
Look, man, first of all, Bishop Eddie Long is a beautiful brother. Number one, as an individual. Bishop Eddie Long is doing work in Africa and other places that other people won't go. Number two. Number three, I disagree with